Hi, my name is Kayla Stein, and I'm here to talk about my work in relation to industry for National Clay Week 2018. Thank you for Artaxis to inviting me to talk about it. I'm an artist, designer, and educator living in Sonoma, California. I run the residency and public studio at Sonoma Ceramics. I love starting with this picture because it really shows my upbringing. I grew up in the Finger Lakes region of New York State, central New York. My father was a carpenter. My parents were back to the landers, homesteaders, hippies. They really taught me the dignity and value of labor, growing our own food, plowing the fields with the horses, logging the land. We learned how to make something from nothing, and later in life this came back to me as I began working in clay. While in graduate school at the New York State College of Ceramics at Alfred University, I began looking at a lot of the archaeological books in school's library. The renderings from the archaeologists showed silhouettes, cut-throughs, cross-sections, all analyzing form and how the pieces were made. This made a lot of sense to me, being a mold maker and a slip caster. It was the way I would look at a vessel or divide it up to create a mold or to find a parting line. So this was the beginning of something larger that culminated with my thesis piece called Convivium. Convivium is an interpretation of a garden and a banquet. It's a place, it's a space, it's a time. It is a monocultured site for contemplation and celebration. It exists simultaneously as an idea, a thing, and the process. The piece was designed specifically for this room called the Palladian Room, based off of the arches that is on the Alfred University campus. The vernacular objects have the ability for people to access the work through a familiar lens. So the goblet is a familiar form, a vessel for drinking. However, it's a special form, an archetypal form for celebration, conviviality, gathering, luxury. The goblet shape and a pattern of a multiple is a metaphor for the gathering itself, the community, the gardens, the contributions, the synchronicity of something together. There's 1,700 goblets on this 40-foot table. The modeled surface on the volumetric side, the rounded side, references volume, the hand, the working time, and the clay. I use this expressionistic process to reveal inherent qualities of the soft clay. Utilizing these two extremes of mottled and smooth, I can currently honor the hand and simple tools. As a result, the structural essence of the form is revealed as the materials and processes inform the subject, with associative qualities suggesting potentials of craft and coming together. The goblets are split vertically in half, one side completely flat and the other side rounded into a hemisphere form from the bird's eye view. The silhouette side is a derivative of the true object. It's a drawing on paper. It's the footprint as it sits on the table when I make a mold of it. The opposing side, the rounded half moon, is the dimensional half, characterized by the evidence of touch, significations of pace and hand and forming. To me, the raw materials of the glass and the poplar and the clay, the unvitrified clay, is part of the concept. It's the potential of the collective. They are not finished and hardened, but they are in stasis between being raw material and being potential and being finished. Here, the lighting plays through the piece, through the glass top of the table, and the soft surfaces help absorb the light, furthering the depth of the pattern. Industry is implied in the constructed pattern of these pieces, hundreds of pieces, showing diligence, time, technical productivity that all manifest together in this piece. Planning and strategies for efficiency and time come together in the studio. Here is a trough made for the molds. The molds hold 4 forms in each block. and they sit on the rails of the trough. So then when the molds are dumped, they can just pivot along the rails, minimizing the amount of times the molds actually have to be lifted up. Rhythm of working in the studio and dealing with multiples like this becomes a way of life. The drying time, firing time, casting time dictates the rhythm of my time every day and every week in the studio. Sometimes I feel like this man in Edward Maybridge's motion study from the 1800s, as I'm reaching for my present goals, my future goals, and what I have going on around me. I love this piece because it shows the same form in multiple places at multiple times in the same image. The repetition is something of beauty and industry. My most recent studio work came out of a residency at the Maryland Institute College of Art in Baltimore, supported by a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts in 2017. The grant year marked the centennial of the National Parks anniversary, and my collaborators and I proposed working within a National Historic Site, the Bolton Hill neighborhood in Baltimore, to research the architectural terracotta in combination with digital and analog ceramic fabrication. Beginning with clay digging was important to us as we found our place there and understood a little bit about the background and the history of what was the main industry when these buildings were built. In the residency, I designed a 16-part revolved vessel based off some of my previous work. The concept for me was to make a repeatable part that I could fabricate an acrylic coddle system for, kind of like a mold-making machine. I started working with the studio technicians to design the model. We then printed it on a Prusa printing machine, but had to divide it up into 3 parts because the machine was so small. Here's the end result of the 1/16 model with the laser-cut acrylic panels that bolt directly into the model. Plastics are a great material to cast against since they are dense, non-porous, and it holds up very well to cleaning. Here you see the plaster poured into the mold after part of the sides are removed. The sides are removed when the plaster is a sour cream consistency, so I can screed off the top of the plaster, reducing extra weight in the mold and also creating contour lines for the mold straps to sit on once the mold is constructed. The mold was intended to be a slip cast mold, but in the first casting it did not hold up under its own weight because of the contour of the form itself. My immediate strategy was to transition from a slip cast mold to a press mold using architectural terracotta clay. So by pressing slabs into the mold and then strapping the mold together and binding the slabs together using coils, I was able to come out with a robust, cohesive object that related back to the Bolton Hill architecture much better in the long run. Another project in Bolton Hill was inspired by the ornamental cast iron flower boxes and gates around the city. They were made by Krug & Son Ironworks in Baltimore. This foundry opened in 1810 and is recognized as the oldest continually operating blacksmith shop in the USA. Isolating segments of the ornament using Photoshop and Illustrator, I created simplified silhouettes to cut out of plywood with a laser cutter to make extruder dies that fit a basic studio clay extruder. The extruded forms are a result of an industrial process that is used in so many different manufacturing realms, including spaghetti making. The extrusions are twisted and rendered into maquettes for public furniture. If realized, the fragmented ornament would be massive, the size of a couch, to become furniture or playground objects where adults and children can engage with these enlarged ornamental fragments. The forms avoid strict designation of function or architecture, but they multi-function as benches, shelters, lounges, slides, or ornament in the park. Parks remind us of the natural world and the importance of creating safe places for respite and play. designing furniture for a utopian place situated against a historical backdrop of poverty and racial unrest in a place like Bolton Hill may be idealistic and politicized, but the gesture is sincere and rooted in my experience there. Systematic labor, manufacturing, creating something valuable. This is industry as I see it. Thank you for listening.